Mark 8:14. Now the disciples had forgotten to take bread, and they did not have more than one loaf with them in the boat. Then he charged them, saying, "Take heed, beware of the leaven of the Pharisees and the leaven of Herod."
Going until 21st. Let's get Rico to read this one.
16.
Wait, stop Rico.
16 to 20.
What's the purpose here?
That's what you said. There's a hidden motive. You said really close.
And they began discussing with another one the fact that they had no bread. And Jesus, aware of this, said to them, "Why are you discussing the fact that you have no bread? Do you not yet perceive or understand? Are your hearts hardened? Having eyes, do you not see? And having ears, do you not hear? And do you not remember when I broke the 5 loaves and for the 5,000, how many baskets full of broken pieces did you take up?" They said to him, 12. And the 7 for the 4,000, how many baskets full of broken pieces did you take up? And they said to him, 7. And said to them, do you not yet understand?
All right. So, verse 14, right? What Jesus said is that take care, right? Who was he talking to? The disciples, right? He said take care. And then take care of what? He said, be on your guard. Let's read this one. So it's the same version. Watch out for the yeast of the Pharisees and that of Herod. Right?
What yeast?
And then, look at verse 16. They discussed this. Who's they? The disciples, right? So these disciples, like us, for example, right? Mike said, "Yo, be careful of something. You warn us something." And then we start talking. They discuss this with one another and said, "Oh, it's because we have no bread." Right? But in this verse, you guys probably know if you read this verse before that Jesus was not talking about bread. Right? Jesus was talking about spiritual yeast. What's the yeast? Do you guys know how yeast works? Bakers? Any bakers around here?
BBC is not here.
Ah, and it's not here.
Jordani.
Jordani.
Oh, Jordani.
What does yeast do?
Makes it grow.
Make things grow.
Poofy.
Puffy. Make things puffy, right?
Yeah.
Does it still have the same weight?
Yeah.
Didn't wait.
No, you didn't weigh it, right? A bread this much, if you put yeast, it'll be this much. But most of the time, the mass will be the same. Right? What's there is just air. Because the yeast take out carbon dioxide. Right? They breathe. Right? So, when Jesus warned them, watch out for the yeast of Pharisees and that of Herod. This is not the first time that Jesus talked about the Pharisees. Right? So who are the Pharisees, first of all?
Pharisees could be involved with government, could be involved with people, high councils, you can say. That's what it means.
They're in high status. Right? The Pharisees are respected. So back in the day, if you watch movies or pictures about Jesus, right, the Pharisees always shown as someone who has like all these robes, right? Looks like. So nowadays, they would be driving Ferrari, for example. You know, something that is like you just respect.
I didn't see them.
That's why the parents.
I didn't say that.
I didn't see in the car show.
I didn't say that.
Close.
Oh, what is the Pharisee?
No, we're not there yet. Getting there.
I wish.
Okay, so the yeast of the Pharisees is something that blows up. You know, you can talk about it's the pride.
Yes.
It's the thing that to show off, right? But then apparently the disciples misunderstood what Jesus said, right? And they saw, oh, is it because we have no bread that you're talking about yeast, right? And verse verse 17, aware of their discussion, Jesus asked them, why are you talking about having no bread? Right? So, do you still not see or understand? Are your hearts hardened? Do you have eyes but fail to see, and ears but fail to hear? And don't you remember when I broke 5 loaves for the 5,000, and how many basket pieces of did you pick up? And the disciples just answered, 12. Right? But when they answered, it seemed as if they still don't get it. Right? Jesus asked another question. And when I broke the 7 loaves for the 4,000, how many basketful of pieces did you pick up? They answered, 7. So they still do not understand that Jesus was not talking about bread. Right? So this story looks very simple that, you might think that, oh, disciples are just pretty dumb. They don't understand. They see Jesus. You might think, oh, if I were right beside Jesus, I wouldn't do this. I would be like, oh, I know exactly what you're talking about, but apparently no. Because at that time, Jesus was someone that is for the outcast. Jesus wasn't known for, his teachings. This is brand new, right? Because the Pharisees are teaching about the law, right? They're focusing on keeping the law. They're focusing on earning salvation, right? But Jesus was focusing on the big picture, right? So here, the point I'm trying to make is that, just like in the verse before, Jesus knew what he was going to do, but Philip didn't know, right? Philip has a solution, but Philip didn't know. And in here, same thing. Jesus knew. And Jesus warned them about something, about the Pharisees, but they didn't understand. What is that? So one thing I want to share is that because all of us here, we see things with our eyes. Even though, you can sing all the time, I see by faith. You know what, that most of the time you don't. You always see with your eyes, right? I have a story. During March, right after school, right, I just graduated, and in May I got the degree, right, and then I talked to a consultant, an immigration consultant, lawyer actually, and she was saying, oh man, there's no way you could stay. No way you could stay. It's because you had your permit already that can be given only once a lifetime after you graduate for 3 years, right? And I was devastated. I was like, oh man, that's too bad, Everybody in my work is like, oh, that's too bad, because you stay here for, 13 years? You still haven't got your permanent resident yet? Oh man, that sucks, You're supposed to get it already. And in my head, I was thinking, why am I not getting it? Right? I was confused because I see with my eyes that, it's not possible, right? And it was really hard for me to get faithful because when I study hours, the immigration website, there is no channel for me to get into permanent residence except marrying someone. Yeah. But that wasn't what I was going to do.
Rich old lady.
Yeah, rich old lady in Chinatown, right?
Is that how you got married? Chinatown must be Chinatown. Underground agreement. Underground table agreement. That guy's
Back to the story. Back to the story, everybody. So what I decided to do is that, I'm just gonna travel. Might as well, because I'm not gonna stay in Canada for much longer, right? Grab all my income tax, sold all my stocks, things like that, and use all the money to travel.
Like lost it.
Exactly. I was literally the prodigal son. Yeah. I basically blew my savings on the travel, even though I tried to make it cheap, but that it didn't happen. It just couldn't. When you're traveling, you can't make it cheap. So there I go, went on the travel, right? And don't you know that when you're traveling, right, the problem's still there. You're just escaping, right? Most people do is like, you need vacation, man. Actually, not really. You need rest. But you don't need vacation,
Wow.
It's a totally two different things.
There you go.
Right? So I went on vacation. Right? Oh yeah, it's all fun, It was pretty fun. Almost 2 months, right? Without me having to worry about what's going on. right? So that was really good. And what I realized in the travel is that even though you might not know what's going on, for some reason God was still taking care of me. That's one big learning that I learned, right? And there was little things, miracle that happens in the middle, right? That I don't want to go too much detail on, but it is for sure a miracle. I almost died because on the road there was this big truck. All of a sudden the wood come out from the truck. It almost hit me in the thing, right? So I swirled, so I just hit the side, and I was safe. Right? So many little things like that because it was 14,000 kilometers. Right? So things happen during the drive. So even then, I acted just like the disciples. Just like the disciples. I saw all these little miracles, and yet I do not understand that something as easy as a status for God is just, it's easy, right? It's just so easy. To Him, it's not easy. So let's take a minute here. Remind yourself of what your problems are. You know, something that you might want to escape from. Something that you might want to solve with brute strength, right? Or with your intelligence. And just remember, what has God done for you that you can be here in Michael's house right now? There must be something. Must be something in your life, you know? That you end up here in Canada. I think most of us are not from here, except Lindsay, Stephen. No, Stephen's not from here. Yeah. Yeah, none of us are actually from here. Most of
Natalie?
Oh, Natalie.
Hello. Good morning,
Think about something else now.
Natalie is from Philippines. Yeah, I remember that. She's Filipino. We had that discussion. Miss Filipino in 2004, right? Yeah.
He forgot the main reason why he dated you. That's why I go there. That's why I go there.
She's from Filipino, I understand.
Okay, continue. We'll talk later.
A very long talk.
Yeah, so during that time. So what I saw, right, during those problems, when the problems are occurring, what I can see, right, the solutions are only in little pieces, right? So what that means is that I met with Maureen, a girl from Toronto. Most of you might already know the story, right? She told me that, oh, you know what, it's possible. I was like, oh, there's a little hope, right? But yet, a couple of days before that, I bought a plane ticket home. I was so ready to go home.
It was a one-way too.
One-way ticket. I bought a one-way ticket.
Wow.
Right? So, why did I bought that one-way ticket? It's because I thought, oh, you know what? There's probably no way to stay. But after I figured, talked to Maureen for a bit, you know, I decided one night, I said, okay, you know what? Let's try this out, right? And what's funny is that right after try it out, it's almost like living by faith day by day, right? If you guys know about Joseph, right? Joseph had a vision, right? He was going to be a ruler, right? But for the longest time, where did Joseph spend his time in?
Jail.
In jail, persecuted, you know? He wasn't having a good time. And he wasn't having a good time at all. But do you think, was there a purpose in those things? Right? What do you think if Joseph knew that he was going to go to jail? What would he do? Would he shut up?
I think you'll try to escape from it.
Try to escape
from the problems.
If he knew, if people knew, if we knew what we are going to go through, right? If let's say we have an all-seeing eye, we would try to evade or escape the problems. But little did we know that the problems are something that's going to make us stronger later in the end. Right? So, without those problems, if you get into that purpose, if you get into that destiny that we always think about, dream about, right? if you boop, get it instantly, you're probably not going to stay there very long. Why can Joseph be a ruler? Because can you imagine? His integrity was tested.
Yeah.
Right? With Potiphar, with the dreams, right? He can actually just tell them the lie, a white lie. Oh, you know what? I just dreamed something good about you. No. He told it as is. Right? So something like that. So during those times, you'll be tested. It's because we're going to go back again. That this is why God gives you vision, God gives you the purpose, God gives you your destiny in little pieces, partially. Because what happens if God gives you everything? You're not going to do it. You're not going to go through, oh, there's no way I can do that. That's really hard.
Yeah.
Right? Me and Rico, we were talking about things before, a while ago. Rico was like, bro, I'm really envious of you, how you can live by yourself, you can pay for your own tuition. Actually, in my head, it was a reverse. I told him, bro, I'm envious of you. You can go through a crazy thing, because that time, his brother just passed away. I said, if my sister just passed away, I probably would have lost it. Right? So people see the result. Right? What people see is the result. What I saw in him was the result of his perseverance. What he saw in me was only the result. Right? But did he see me doing my homework? No, he didn't. Did I see him doing his homework? He was probably praying like crazy. He was probably crying when nobody else was there. Right? So don't be afraid of the little process that you are going through. It might be painful, right? Because, remember again, God gives you your purpose in pieces. Even, let's go to this one here, Luke. Let's open up Luke. Luke 5, I think. Yeah, Luke 5. Okay. Let's get Stephen to read Luke 5, verse 1 to 11.
Just because
You
he's
can
the
do it.
youngest one.
You can do it.
What have I done to you?
In
Okay,
Cantonese.
let's
In
divide it by
Cantonese.
2. You read from 1 to 5.
In Cantonese.
And
In Espanol.
Aries the best.
Oh, look at that. I gotta get a translator.
Stephen 1 to 5 and Aries 6 to 11.
And it came to pass that, as the people pressed upon him to hear the words of God, he stood by the lake of Gennesaret and saw 2 ships standing by the lake, for the fishermen were gone out of them, and were washing their nets. And he entered into one of the ships, which was Simon, and prayed him that he would thrust out a little from the land. And he sat down and taught the people out of the ship. Now when he had left speaking, he said unto Simon, launch out into the deep, and let down your nets for a draught. And Simon answering said unto him, Master, we have toiled all the night, and have taken nothing. Nevertheless, in the word I will let down the net.
And when they had done this, they enclosed a large number of fish, and their nets were breaking. They signaled to their partners in the other boat to come and help them. And they came and filled both of the boats, so that they began to sink. But when Simon Peter saw it, he fell down at Jesus' knees, saying, Depart from me, for I am a sinful man, O Lord. For he and all who were with him were astonished at the catch of fish that they had taken. And so also were James and John, sons of Zebedee, who were partners with Simon. And Jesus said to Simon, "Do not be afraid. From now on you will be catching men." And when they had brought their boats to land, they left everything and followed him.
Alright. So this is a story when Jesus called Simon Peter, who was the first of the first disciples, right? And who was Simon before Jesus called him? Fisherman. And why did Jesus call him to be? Fishers of people. What does that mean?
That means when you're seeing the power and the message of God, and the message through Jesus especially.
Yeah. So did Simon knew what he signed up for at this point? Did you guys know what Simon ended up being in his older life? What did he has to go through?
A lot of tribulations.
Yeah, so he thrown into the prison a couple times, right? He died as a martyr. So in our eyes, it's like, man, there's no way I'll sign up for that.
Yeah.
Right? If you're Simon, right? You were given this whole contract, a job description that in the end you will get persecuted. You probably would sign up, right? This is why Jesus, God always gives you things in little pieces, right? Because He knew in the end, right, your purpose will be great and it will be good for you, right? For Simon, right now, he's not in hell, but he is in heaven, and I bet, this guy got a lot of rewards. It's because of what he does, right? Not only just saved, but this guy has done so much. It's because he trusted God here. Right? Even later, there's so many things that Simon does that makes Jesus angry, make him sad, things like that. But this is the kind of people that God chooses. You see a trend, if you read the Bible, in the Old Testament, it's always the same. What was Moses' problem? You guys ran away.
He ran away.
He ran away. What else?
He stutters.
He stutters. What else? Doubtful. Yeah. And he did something bad.
He killed an
killed
Egyptian.
So if you think you're a sinner, Moses was a sinner, and he wrote the first,
Half.
first five. Who is Paul?
He's a terrorist.
Yeah, chief of all sinners. This guy called himself a chief of all sinners. If you see the New Testament, most of them is written by him. Right? So, funny thing, what does it take for God to choose you? Right? So think about that for a moment. I'm sure some of you might try to apply for jobs, right? They give you a requirement. Right? Must be able to speak English fluently. Okay, sure. Maybe 5 years of experience. Yeah. 5 years of experience. 10 years. Right? In the industry. And what else do you see? Team player. Software. They have someone who is
Good listener.
good listener. That's all it is. Leader.
God, I get a lot of people don't listen.
Yeah, there's always that qualifications, right? So let's go back to the Pharisees again. If God were just like our HR people, who would be more qualified, Simon or a Pharisee? Right? If God were just like us, right, we would see that the Pharisees have so much more qualifications. This guy can memorize all the verses in the Bible. Right? This guy knows all the law. This guy has, comes to synagogue, church, every Sunday. Or maybe every day. Offer his things, right? They were very qualified. But Jesus chose Simon. Right? And so are the other 11. So is Moses. So is Joseph. So is David. Who was David?
Shepherd.
David was a shepherd. And all his other bros are like this tough, more qualified. Right? So this one thing, when I was reading that God chooses people He wants to. Yeah, He just chooses people because He wants to. That's probably favor. Right? So if whatever it is that God chooses you to do instead of someone else. For example, in our church, it's just very simple. We might not be the best drummer, might not be the best singer, might not be the best worship leaders, and yet we were chosen to do it. Right? Was it because we were really good? No. That wasn't it. When I was asked by Mike to share, did I know about the Bible a lot? Not really. It's pretty nerve-wracking. Do you think I'm ready? No, I'm not ready about this thing. Like, I read a couple things. Right? I listened to sermons.
That's those laughing about okay, you know the truth.
No, it's very true. It's very true. None of us are qualified to share.
Yeah, that's so true.
To share about the message of God. Right? Pastor Nico. Right? Was he an architect? Engineer. Engineer. He's an engineer.
Just like Yesia.
Yesia. Just like Yesia.
Yeah, we're going to preacher.
Preacher was a youth pastor.
Right? So God chooses whoever He wants to choose.
Amen. That's so true.
And whoever. So we gotta stop comparing ourselves to other people. You see, oh man, that guy has this. That guy can't do this. I can't. But sometimes God chooses you just because you can't, because you want to learn.
Wow.
Just because you're willing to. Maybe this is the thing. I shared a quote last time, right?
Yeah.
That if you compare yourself with somebody else, whoever it is in your life, your friends, your CEO, your boss, whatever it is, whatever you want to compare, looks, money, your wallet, purpose, number of subordinates, whatever it is, right? If you start comparing, if they are lower than you, or no, if they're higher than you, you're gonna feel envy. You think, oh, I'm never gonna get there, because you're never gonna get there. There's someone up there every single time. But if you see someone, you compare yourself to someone lower, somebody on the street, you will think that you already have achieved your purpose.
So to read it, bro.
Yeah, let's read it. Also, it's from Stephen Furtick, is the pastor of Elevation Church. He said, when you compare yourself to someone who is better at something than you are, it can cause you to feel unqualified, even though God is pleased with your progress. When you compare yourself to someone who is worse off than you, it can cause you to think you've arrived, even though God has given you a greater capacity and called you to do more.
Wow.
So both are corrosive to your soul because God's qualification for you is not proven by comparison. It is rooted in calling.
Wow.
So when I read that, I was like, whoa, that's crazy. Because it's really easy to compare with people, with whatever it is. Right? Okay, so now, I want to go back to the first verse that we read in John.
Luke.
John 6. When I asked you. John 6. It's about Philip. Okay. Let's look at verse 9. Alright, let's just put it here for a bit. So what did we talk about today? That your purpose is for you.
Wow.
Right? Your purpose is for you, not for someone else. You can, just like Moses. Do you remember that when Moses asked by God, this is for you to do? He said, no, I can't speak. No. I think he did this 3 times, right? He said, no, he rejected the thing 3 times. And finally he accepted it. And Jeremiah, when he was being asked to do something by God, he said, no, I'm too young. Right? We always do that. We'll always say, no, I'm not ready. No, I don't have the money yet. No, I'm just not ready. No, I don't have a permanent resident yet. That's mine. Right? Why? It's because we are so focused. Remember I told you about the pieces? Right? We're so focused on the pieces that you don't have. Have you ever played puzzles? Or Lego?
Jigsaw
Right?
puzzles.
Right? Puzzles, you have the big picture. Right? God has the big picture. But when you're doing your thing, and you realize, I have a couple of chips that I don't have. You're going to be so focused on the things that you don't have. Right? For me, it was a permanent resident. It was on my head for a long time. Right? Little did I know is that it was already being processed. It's just I didn't know. Right? So the thing is, if you keep focusing on the pieces that you don't have, whatever it is, you can relate it to everything, to your jobs or whatever. Oh, I don't have the money yet to build a business. For example, Pastor Mike and Ruth, it was a huge faith for them to actually take care of the church. Right? They could have easily be like Moses, you know what, I need to have 5 businesses first so I can support myself easily. So easy to say that. Right? It's because we are so easily focused on the things we don't have that you end up missing the whole big picture. You're forgetting that thing, what you're supposed to do. Right? Your desire, you forgot. You started to focus things you don't have. For example, here, Philip. Verse 7. Bro, let's go up a little bit. Philip focused on his wage. He said it will take more than half of your wage to buy enough bread for each one to have a bite. But God knew that God can provide those little pieces.
Amen.
So whatever pieces that you're missing, right, it'll be given to you in due time. If you're here from last time, Gilbert told you that God's timing is perfect. It's never late. For me, I can easily say that now. Right? I was waiting for that thing for a long time. Right? Doubting here and there, have some faith and doubting again. I was like, oh Lord, when is he going to come? Should I just go home? Things like that. Right? But in my heart, I had that big picture. But I was focusing on what I don't have. Not what I have. What I have here was friends. People who supported me. People who prayed for me. I didn't focus on that. Right? If I focus on that, I'll be like, hey, can you pray more for me? I keep talking about it. I decided to forget about those things. I drew back. I don't want to talk about my permanent residence. Right? Because it's painful for me to talk about it. Right?
No, we don't.
Yeah. Every time people ask, it's like, hey, how's the status? Oh man, I got bored. Because it's like every day there'll be 5 questions asking the same thing. Right? Every time.
Different way.
Yeah.
It ended up that way.
So it makes me focus on those things. Right? So instead of like Philip, let's look at verse 9. There's a guy here that doesn't have a name. That's not mentioned. Here is a boy. Here is a boy with 5 small barley loaves and 2 small fish. But how far will they go among many? And Jesus said, have the people sit down. So what is this message trying to say? So there's this little boy that what do you think is the thing that he has? That's his lunch. Yeah, that's his lunch. So this is talking about when you trust God with what you have, whatever it is, you do it for Him. It's not you do it for Him, I'm going to give my business to the church. No, that's not the thing. It's in here, right? Are you really wanting to let go? Let go of, something that you have. Oh, this is all I have left, man. You can't take this away from me. That's all that the boy had. But once the boy gave that out, see what happened. Let's go back. Jesus then took the loaves, gave thanks, distributed those who were seated as much as they wanted. As much as they wanted. So do you think they ate just enough? They ate pretty full. Right? Just like today. That was pretty full. He did the same with the fish. And then when they gather, there are pieces that are left over. Right? So, after we learn about that God's purpose in you is given in little pieces, it's because you just can't take it. If God gave you a huge purpose, you're gonna be like, no way. Right? It's too big for you. But God gave you a little bit, 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 and one day you look back. Whoa, there's no way I can do that. That was almost impossible. I couldn't believe that was me, for example, right? But little did you know that because God always gave you a little bit by a little bit, right? And then you grow. For example, as Stephen would probably know, we play sports, right? When you learn to run, do you run 100 meter or like a huge marathon, like 10K right away? No, you start little by little, and your body just adjusts. So God will give you a small challenge, right? And then if you remember with Brian, who was sharing, there's this small challenge, right? You solve it, and then there's another big one, right? And after you finish this one, that small challenge doesn't seem much anymore. It's like, oh, okay, that was actually not bad. Why was I struggling so much, right? But then you get level up, right? You can do all these challenges. You trust God more and more and more and more, right? And then, when there's something big over here, right? Something, when you were over here, this was impossible for you, right? But when you're here, this was just another level. When you were in grade 6, you look at your cousin's book. Wow, that's what grade 12 is all about? That is so difficult. You just can't do it, right? Because you're in grade 6. But when you're in grade 11, you're like, okay, that's hard, but you look at it and say, I think I understand rules of it. But when you're in grade 12, that's on your level. I think Ruth talked a lot about this, where when it's hard, then you know it's time for you to go up a level. Right? When it's easy, it means you're staying in the same spot. Right? So just another thing in here. This is the how. So how do we basically go up that level? It's basically do with what you have. Because when you're focusing on what you're missing, you're going to miss the whole thing. You're going to miss the big picture. You just forgot what you're here for, and you just... Yeah? Do you guys play Counter-Strike? Dota, or whatever? Computer games, right? They have what you call the minimap. What's the minimap for? To see the big picture. What if you don't have the minimap? You'll be blind. Right? You can only see what's in the front of you. Right? What happened is, for example, for those guys who play games, you're trying to beat this. They know. You're trying to beat this person in front of you, right? It was so hard, but you don't realize right behind you, your friends are coming for you. Right? You can just give up. Reinforcement. Right? The only way you can see that is with the big picture. The problem is that it's really hard to see the big picture when you are in the battle. But who can see the big picture? God can. Right? So this is why I think, even though it's important to be in the battle, right? It's actually more important for you to rest after that and just focus on your relationship with God.
Amen.
Right? Let's see one thing here that we saw. Go to Luke 4. Luke 4. Alright. Verse 42. read it out. At daybreak, Jesus went out to a solitary place. What's a solitary place? Quiet place where there is nobody else there. Right? If you read the whole chapter 4, what happened was Jesus got tempted by the devil. He was fasting. Right? He beat the temptation. And then he got rejected in Nazareth. You know? And then he healed a man with an evil spirit. Heals many people. He was doing all these crazy miracles. Right? He was doing the work of God. But what did he do? After, Jesus went out to a solitary place. Right? Since the beginning in Genesis, God has always pointed out that rest, right? Rest in Him. It's because it's really important. It's not, people say, oh, you know, you recharge your energy, to take your heads off things. Not really. You need to see the big picture from Him.
Amen.
You need to ask Him, oh, what am I doing? Like, for example, if you guys ever work, you ask your CEO, your boss, right? You have that weekly meeting, you know? They call it goals meeting, or vision meeting, whatever. You call it, many companies do it. It's because they need to redirect you to the vision, right? Because when you are in the battle, you can't see the big picture. You just can't see what's going on. Right? So this is a way for you to really get back your purpose. You might have, I believe all of you have received your purpose already, little by little, but I'm pretty sure you will forget. If you're in the battle, you will forget. It's just so easy to forget about it. What's your purpose? Maybe it's in your heart before. But if you don't rest, if you don't contemplate on it, if you don't ask God, oh, okay, is it still the same thing? Like, is my purpose still the same? Because some people's purpose, they shift. Why? It's because, like Saul. Remember Saul? The old Saul in the David's times. He was the king, and his purpose switched. Right? Solomon, he just switched. You know, Moses, everything. So God turns you. Right? So the only way you can know which way God is turning is during your solitary place. Not in church. In church, you get pumped up. Right? You get like, oh yeah, I'm going to do this. Oh yeah, whoa, preach it, pastor. You know? But he doesn't tell you where are you going next. What are you supposed to do on Monday? Right? How are you supposed to treat your co-worker who just, you know, talk bad about you on Monday? Right? All that, you do it yourself. Yeah. The church is there for you to support, you know, to give you a backbone. Right? But the rest, the homework, remember the pieces you do yourself, is actually much more important than the result.
Yeah.
Right? Rico, there's no way Rico can go through all the things that he go through, right, without him doing his homework.
Right.
Without him being able to, you know, just trust God in whatever is going on. Right? For me, I just saw, oh man, this guy is tough. Right? So one day you're gonna see yourself and you say, wow, I was tough. You know, you have been upgraded to this, your next level kind of thing. So that's all I'm sharing. Anything to add?
Just want to witness what you say about purpose. Like you just have to understand your not purpose, but like God has a purpose in you. You like it or not, realize it or not, but God really has purpose on you. So remember we were playing basketball that day. Remember my coworker?
Yeah.
He already like achieved way more than me. But guess what? Got let go last week.
Oh no.
That's why. When I saw him, like, don't worry, bro. You're gonna be fine. You're the persons that before they let go, they let you know first, because he's the GNA. But guess what? He's the one that can get out first. Like remember I shared last week that I couldn't sleep. Because I had a feeling that something might happen next week. Well, I didn't have a feeling, but I just don't know how. But I know now. And then when I see that, I question myself, like, who am I? Why am I still staying here? I'm nothing. Like, compared to those guys that got let go, those engineers are just like making more millions than I'm just like analyst. not even making any certain dollars equivalent than those people that let go. But maybe God has purpose in there. We never know. But we know that it's for a good thing that we stay. I was very sad to saw him to leave from the door.
He's an excellent basketball player.
Yeah.
He killed us, man. Killed us.
That's why. You
That's
never
why
know.
he got fired.
It's like, boss, I don't like him.
That's pretty rough, man.
No, but yeah, the message is that there's a purpose for everyone. Like, because as I told you, he's the guy that my informant who will be let go. Because he's a GNE. General administration means the people that dealing with the salary, payroll, headcounts. And he has already designations.
He
Who
has
am
another
I?
purpose on another places.
So that's the thing.
That's right.
He has a better purpose out there.
That will make you a great story then.
Him?
God.
Okay.
It'll make a great story.
That's true. But yeah, I just want to witness you guys that, yeah, Marcel's right. Like, just keep doing what you're doing. Give the best. Because there's a purpose in everything.
Especially what you said is like, it kind of shows that you're very humble on that purpose of your work, right? Even when anybody, whether a boss or even somebody that's lower than you, they see that humility from you, like, just by grace you're here. You're not boosting your pride or not like, oh, I'm the best. Nobody's gonna fire me.
He deserved it.
Exactly.
No, I'm not gonna say that.
But it goes back to, when you choose somebody to keep, it kind of shows by their integrity, humility. It shows a lot of compassion, a lot of teamwork. Not like, oh, I'm better than you. I'm not going to teach you this and that. Like a lot of negative stuff. That's the last thing that I want, right? And at the same time, what Marcel mentioned is like, it's all those levels that we go. It's all about maturity at the same time. So we grow to become maturity in God's eyes and by the Spirit at the same time. And very strong, very strong.
Because I want, and Marcel has agreed. Like, I've had Marcel to make that comment on me. I was like, whoa, makes me think again. What I've been through. Because I wasn't like, oh, whatever, man. I just lose my brother. I just lose my dad. But like the way he thinks, like not the way I think. I think like, bro, you're cool, man. you work extra hard. You clean janitor for the university for your sister to come here and everything. I was like, that's more cooler. But to him, I don't know. That's not the way I see it. Did he say that?
He sees it very differently, but at the same time, it's just those accomplishments of every level that you go through.
I don't know if you guys, most of you probably know Jay Leno. Jay Leno?
With hers?
Yeah. I don't know if you know that he got fired from his dream job, right? A long time ago.
Yeah.
He always been wanting to have that type of job, and then he got it. But he got fired. And since then, he tried to do a lot of stuff, and he got really famous now. Everybody knows that. And one time, a reporter asked him, what is your key to success? He said, the key of my success is, I didn't give up when I lost my dream job. He said that if he didn't got fired at that time, it was devastating for him because he always wanted to have that job. I couldn't remember what job it was, but he got fired from there. He, instead of look pity on himself, he used that to trust him to the next level, right? And now he's like probably the most famous, what do you call it, talk show host, right? And he also collects cars.
Oh yeah.
He collects like, he probably owns the biggest garage, right? And a lot of times we don't see the big picture like God does, because he's up there and he can look everything, right? Like Marcel says, sometimes he shows pieces of it. And I just want to share a little bit. When the first time we moved to Canada, we use up pretty much almost all of our money to pay the lawyers, the immigration lawyers, just so we can come to Canada. We spend lots of money, and to move from one country to another, it's pretty. It's a big move, right? Especially not only just by yourself, but I have a wife and a daughter that I have to take with me. So, like a few months after we moved to Canada, I had a job. Ruth was just staying at home as a full-time mom, looking after Lindsay. She was only like a year and a half at that time. We were praying, God, what should we do next? This is our new beginning, kind of like a new chapter in our life. And at that time, there was a challenge back at our Ruth's old church. It's to give, to sow a seed, like they call it the seed of faith. Yeah, but no, what the faith seed? Yeah, faith promise kind of thing. That one of the verse that I read, that boy gave up everything, gave up his lunch. And I shared this at the church before, that when you give something to God, it's in His nature to multiply the things that you give to Him. Right? You give Him 2 fishes and 5 loaves of bread. What's happened? He fed the 5,000 and they still have enough leftovers. So I was reading that verse, and that verse kind of struck me at that time. So I prayed, Lord, do you want us to give for this like faith promise thing? And then, we both prayed, and the answer was yes. So I said, okay, well, I give. I said, I want to do something for the Lord. And then I asked, is there a specific amount that you want us to give? The Lord said, half. I was like, half? It doesn't make any sense. Half of what, right? And then a few days later, we kept praying, and then the Lord said, half of what you saved. So pretty much half, 50% of what you have in your savings right now. I was shocked when I had that impression in my heart. I was like, no way, you want me to give half of what I have? I just moved to Canada. I kind of need this money to settle down. And long story short, I wrote the check, just exactly what God wanted me to do. And I will not, I tell you, I shared this at the church before. When I gave the check, I was crying, literally. My emotion as a father, to be able to provide for my family, and the Lord said to give half of what I have, or what I've been saving all this time. It was, just my human nature. I want to be obedient to God at the same time, but it was a lot for me to give half of what I have. But I did it anyway. I cried when I handed over the check, or when we did a wire transfer. I kind of like, after I gave, I had like this peace in my heart, knowing that I did the right thing, that God wanted me to do. not long after that, looking back, like right now, I don't know how many hundreds folds of God have returned that to me. He was looking at, like right now, my investor mind was thinking, God, you should have just asked me to give you all of them. Maybe I get like double what I have right now. But thinking back, but that was not the challenge, because at that time I kid you not, I was crying when I make the transfer. Literally, it was like half of my savings, and we didn't have a lot at that time, because we didn't know. Because at that time the paperwork was still in process, and the lawyer said, "Oh, you're still gonna need a lot of funds. Just save up your money, because you're gonna have to pay for this, pay for that." And we just got an apartment. We have nothing in our apartment. We don't even have a spoon, in the apartment. Yeah, we were living, barely with anything, right? With anything. I have a daughter, and like I said, as a provider for the family, I felt like I need all of my resources right now. I have to be wise. I can't just give anything away, right? Yeah, but looking back, I was like, God, if that was my test, I think I did okay, and I really want you guys to, a lot of times we forget that the output is just a result of what you put in, right? If you want the output to be greater, then put in something greater. Right? It's just as simple as that, right? You want to have a bigger achievement in your life. Then remember, who's the multiplier, right? You put a little bit, you multiply it with God, it becomes great, and it's always have that problem. If you put a lot, then it's going to be a lot more, right? So, Marcel, Ruth and I, and also some of guys, like Roberto, maybe not Rico. No, I'm just kidding. Rico too, right? And some of the guys who's been with the Lord in the ministry, especially with the BIC for so long. We were thinking at that time, right, before we took this pastor position, we were like, what make these guys, I know they have potentials in their lives, and I know that, not even a second, I know they're going to have a great future ahead of them. Right? But at the same time, we were discussing, what do you think that made them will have this great future? Obedience. That's it. Loyalty and obedience. God really honors those two, right? Really honor. We are in a contract with God, whether you like it or not. The moment they accepted Christ, you accept the Lord's suffering and the Lord's
terms and conditions.
Yeah. The moment you accepted Christ, you are in a contract with them, right? Yeah. You're in a contract with God, because the Bible said that you are co-heir with Jesus Christ, right? There's a contract that you bind with the Lord. When you accepted Christ, and it's sealed with the blood of Christ, right? There's a blood covenant. And a lot of times, in a blood covenant, what is the most honorable thing? It's trust and loyalty, right? If I have a covenant with any of you, right, what do you expect from me? You expect me to be loyal to what I said, or to what we agreed on, right? So loyalty and obedience is the greatest asset that you can have. My dad used to say, you don't have to be the richest man in the world, or you don't have to gain all this wealth, but if you can be loyal with what you said, you're a rich man. Right? I was like, okay. At that time, I was like, okay, here we go again.
How old were you actually?
Huh?
How old were you?
I was probably 12.
Oh, shit. Yeah.
My dad, my dad is.
When I played Nintendo, that's all I do.
I was like, Dad, can you just give me a Nintendo game and I'll be this one,
Yeah.
But, you know, there's some good things that my dad taught me, and a lot of times I didn't really listen to him until now I get old, and then you start to think back. And, oh, my dad used to tell me this and that.
Always late.
Yeah, now I do remember. But it was a good sharing. It was a good sharing. Now I know why he asked me for puzzle pieces. And that puzzle pieces are. We don't like to get confused at this time.
We already had enough confusion.
Every time Lindsay asks me for a puzzle, Lindsay, don't worry about the puzzle. I'll show you the big picture.
This is the box?
There.
There you go.
Don't worry about the puzzle.